Okay, today we're going to talk about engineers' responsibility to society. And let's get that going, get a pen going so I can talk about things. There's the ethics of the engineering profession. A lot of times there's a conflict between money and safety. Engineers are concerned with the health and safety of the public, so we've got to do things right, not just what makes money. There will be ethical dilemmas you run into. Typically, businesses are interested only in the money, not sustainability. What are we going to do about that as engineers? Same thing with the environment. Where we can find a way to be more sustainable and protect the environment that also saves money and is good for society, that is a real win-win. And then who is responsible? And it is values driven. Okay, let's move on. So I want to give a couple examples of engineering failures where people weren't so ethical. Walkway collapse, 114 deaths. Original design was deficient. The original design, the bolt went through like this on the beam. The way it was made, the bolt went through top and bottom, like so. They didn't intend the beam. They didn't intend a hole, to cut a hole right in the middle of the weld, the weakest part of the beam. The design revision. So they went with this design, from this design to this design over here. The problem was there were 3 levels, 1, 2, 3. And the rod, this rod right here, was intended to go through all 3. So you'd have the load of this floor on the nut down here, one nut, and you'd have the load of this floor on this nut, and of course you'd have twice the load on pulling up. You'd need an attachment at the top that was twice the load. But on each individual nut you only had the design load. The trouble is you'd have to thread this entire portion of the rod to make it work, and then thread the end up here and attach it and all that stuff. This costs a lot, so as a cost reduction they went with this design right here. What happens there, and I'm going to erase the stuff on the slide, start over, erase all ink on the slide. Okay, so what happens here is that you have one rod like so, one rod like so. You have the weight here, P, the weight here, P, and right here though, you have these 2 forces are acting. So you have double the weight acting on this particular nut. And you transmit twice the design load upwards right here. Cheaper, but it failed. Design change was approved over the phone. People didn't think about it, let's put it that way. Lost licenses, bad situation all the way around. Florida International Bridge Collapse, more recent. You don't hear about engineering failures a lot because it doesn't happen real often, which is good. Occasionally it does. 6 people killed, cracks that were reported to be not serious, they probably were, design deficiencies, stress testing with traffic, ignored construction requirements, tighten the cable with people driving underneath the bridge, no temporary supports, move this end support over here without doing a recalculation of the loads, and finally, some male chauvinist reported that it was a female-owned company when in fact it was not. They were trying to discredit women in engineering. And happened, that was 2018. There's still a lot of antipathy toward women in engineering. It reminds me of my Spanish class. It is el problema, la solución. He's the problem, she's the solution. That's just grammar in Spanish. Okay. Responsibility to society. Engineers have a pretty big impact. We can do a lot of things to make a positive impact. Washing machines, water use. People are still working on the washing machine. You'd think that would be a pretty mature technology, but they're doing a lot of things for fire prevention and the like. The road runoff, designing roads, and then you do have to worry about cost. Money is always an issue. Okay. Profession, you have systematic expertise, lots of study, regulation, licenses, professional codes of ethics. And finally, engineers are concerned with the health and safety of the public good. So we're held to be accountable for the health and safety of the public. Codes of ethics. Different societies have different codes of ethics, and code of conduct, but they're all kind of similar. Ethics. Just remember, what we do affects other people for a long time. What we make, bridges, buildings, ships, etc., all the stuff that we do hangs around for a long time. And there's high level government, professional, so usually you have government on an inner circle. It's like layers of an onion. Professional is next. The employer has their own code. Then you have your own personal code that wraps everything. Underlying the whole thing is your personal code. Employer, personal. Rules of conduct, rules and regulations, your values, your moral principles. Scientific understanding, that people research what is good, what is bad, and it changes. Back in the 1700s, people didn't realize germs were bad. And then your ethical practices, what you do. Here's an example of a code of ethics. Paramount, the safety, health, and welfare of the public. I'm not going to go through everything. Objective, truthful, faithful client, faithful agent of the employer, avoid deception, honorable, responsible, almost sounds like the scout laws. Honest, say what we mean, deliver what we promise. That's why we go through planning a lot, that we figure out what we're going to commit to do, fulfill commitments, stand for what is right. Dignity and fairness, teamwork. Again, that's part of we've been through a lot in this class. That's a big part of it right there. Responsible for our actions, that we report concerns and obey the laws. I'm going to go ahead and break the video here and go on to the next video in the next section.